Good evening, Bison fans, and welcome to our Bucknell football season preview show. My name is Todd Newcomb, and I'm joined tonight by Maisha Kelly, our Senior Associate AD for Development. And we want to take this opportunity to thank Red Robin for sponsoring tonight's season preview show. Red Robin, a great partner of Bison Athletics, and we thank them for all that they do. We've got a great lineup for you tonight featuring head coach Dave Cicchini and four of our current players, the four captains, Brandon Benson, Simeon Page, Rick Matrum, and PJ Barr. Time now to welcome in the head coach of the Bison, Dave Cicchini. Thanks for joining us, Dave.
Good to be here, Todd.
So Dave's in his second season at the helm of the football program after spending 5 years at the head coach of Valparaiso University, one of the Patriot League's all-time great wide receivers during his time as a player at Lehigh. Dave has also had stops at Lehigh, the Citadel, and Harvard as the offensive coordinator. His offenses have broken school records everywhere he's been, including here at Bucknell, where the Bison established new marks for passing completions and attempts in 2019 on the way to a third-place finish in the Patriot League. That was Bucknell's best conference finish since being the runner-up in 2014. Coach, we'd like to set the stage a bit with some questions from Maisha about your program's return to play.
Sure.
Coach, good to see you. Thanks for joining us here this evening. Before we jump into really talking about the games to come, let's start off really with the preparation. We know that there's been extensive preparation and planning to get us to this point, but particularly from a safety and health standpoint. So can you share with the audience some of the things that your staff, student athletes all have to take care of on a daily basis in order to be at this point?
Yeah, it's certainly been a challenging year, and logistically, the way that we practice, it's the same game, but it looks a lot different. It starts with a limited amount of players that we can have in the locker room at a time. So we have to kind of stagger by position, where the offense has to get in and get dressed, the defense follows, and then our special teams players go in. It's and when we stretch, it's kind of the same way. So you're used to having 90 some players in the locker room coming on out, starting practice at the same time, ending practice on the same time, and that's changed. Obviously, meetings a big difference. We're rarely meeting in person. Most of it's just like we are now on Zoom, and that's has its challenges that come with it. As well. But, through it all, I'm so proud of our players that, wearing masks on the field, it's not something they want to do, but they understand that just the safety protocol is there to protect them, to protect the university, their fellow students, faculty members, and coaches. And they've done a great job of dealing with any, changes just in the schedule and what they have to do, from a safety standpoint. And I'm really proud of their efforts, their attitude, and their determination. And I think it's gotten us to a point where finally we've earned that right to start the season here in a few short weeks.
That's great. And you mentioned change in schedule. And so certainly we know that we have to be extremely nimble in this environment, but the schedule's very unique this year. And so can you talk about how you and your peers, fellow head coaches in the Patriot League, what conversations, what role did you play in helping to establish a Patriot League schedule, and also expectations around when you may have to pivot and be flexible given the environment?
Sure. It starts from the point that you just want, particularly our senior class, our graduating group of seniors, we want to send them out with as good of a football experience as possible. And in an ideal world, that would be a full season. Unfortunately, just logistically, that's not possible with all the challenges that come with that. You have to balance, that rewarding our players for all that hard work with, keeping them safe and keeping everyone around them safe as well. So I think we've struck a fairly good balance. We pushed really hard as coaches to do as much as we can from a safety standpoint. You do reach certain limitations. Unfortunately for us, we were slated to start against Fordham on Saturday, and that's not going to be the case. Both us and Fordham went through periods where the university had to go to remote instruction and limited the amount of practice opportunities that we really were supposed to have at this point in time. And again, that led to us postponing the Fordham game, which again is something that was really done mainly just because our players haven't had enough preparation, enough practices, both Fordham and ourselves. And so, I know your heart says, hey, we want to play football as quickly as possible. We want to make sure that it's safe. Our players are ready. They're acclimated to both the environment and condition. A lot of players, haven't had a whole lot of workouts or just whether it's throwing a football, catching a football, just getting in cardiovascular shape. And those are the challenges that we've kind of navigated as well these past couple of weeks. And again, I think we've done a great job of doing that. But the league did build in for this possibility. We knew that, based off of the winter sports, that games could get postponed or canceled. And so we have a buffer installed, so where we've got our 4 regular season games with a bye week following the end of the regular season to fill in. So, right now we're anticipating that Fordham will be moved to that bye weekend, but it's not a certainty because the league, again, for the first time, has been broken up into 2 separate divisions, a North Division and a South Division. So we've been placed in the South Division with Lehigh and Lafayette. So those are our most important games. Those are our division games. We will, for the first time, be having a league championship football game. So a winner take all, the winner of the North Division versus the winner of the South Division. So because that is what is going to lead you to that championship game, the priority of Lehigh and Lafayette, since they are in our division, we have to make sure that we play those games first. And Lafayette will become our opening football game. They'll play the week prior to us. I believe they play Colgate here prior to us, but then we'll have them on the 20th at home, followed by at Lehigh. And then again, if we can work in the Holy Cross game after that, we'll play that. That'll be our final regular season game, and then we'll get to the Fordham game. But as I said, if something happens to where we can't play Lafayette or we can't play Lehigh at our assigned time for whatever reason, that would take precedence over the Fordham game for that bye week. So there's a lot of juggling that can go on. And again, we're just going to do our best to pivot and get to as many football games as we possibly can. And as long as we're playing to our potential and working as hard as we've been these last couple of weeks, we're very, very hopeful that we'll be involved when we do get to that first ever Patriot League football championship game.
Certainly has been a lot of juggling, and if for certainly our student athletes are doing a lot of pivoting and juggling, and we know that you mentioned as well the pauses and not necessarily getting all of the touch points that they need to get, and also just the build up towards a game, and then again us having to juggle and pivot. So talk about what you've observed with regards to just the physical and mental resolve of your student athletes as they make sacrifices and prepare during a really difficult and challenging season.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's challenging in really every way that you can imagine. The scheduling is difficult because you have every sport on campus here that is in season, and that creates log jams in terms of facilities use. You have the weather. I should start there. I mean, we had 2 feet of snow on Christy Mathewson Memorial Stadium, and shoveling that and getting the field cleared and having cold weather, that's with wind chills in the teens. That these are just things that you're used to having for a week or two, maybe at the end of season. But this has been pretty much every practice that we've had up to this point has been somewhere in that 20 to 35 degree range. So that has brought challenges with it as well. Having to switch and switch our schedules, literally at a moment's notice. All of the sports here everyone's doing their best to accommodate everyone else and to whatever their particular needs are. And that leads to sometimes the day of, we were going to have a walkthrough on the field and we have to postpone it or do it later on the day because there's another sport that needs to get a little work and we want to help them out. And they do the same for us. So There's been a lot of cooperation that's been going on, but for our players, that can be stressful because they don't have a, hey, on Tuesday, this is what I do. On Wednesday, every Wednesday, this is how my schedule is going to be, because every day is something that's going to be potentially different. So a lot of audibles that have been called here over the past couple of weeks. And I think our players are used to that. And they've done an incredible job of keeping their attitude as positive as possibly can be, and just, rolling with those changes. So I think they've gotten used to it to a certain degree, but it certainly isn't as easy or as predictable as a normal schedule would be, in a non-pandemic type of a season.
Coach, we mentioned third place in the league last year. 2 of those 3 losses were by a touchdown or less. It was in every game that we unfortunately fell short on. Every player back but 1 from last year's team. How important is it to have such a core of experienced players back, particularly in a situation like this where you may not have had as much time with the group as you would in a normal preparation type of season?
Sure. Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, the preparation time is a lot less. And so having an experienced group of players coming back, it's huge. It's immeasurable. I mean, we've got such a great group of guys that are in that senior class, and a ton of them played an awful lot of and started an awful lot of football games for us. You're right. We were leading in every single league game. In 2019, it seems like an eternity ago, but yeah, the last time we were out on the field, we were playing for a Patriot League championship against Fordham, and unfortunately we didn't win, so we didn't get our share of that championship, but we were in position the last week of the season. So our guys have tasted success. They've come up short a couple of times, like you mentioned, we were leading in every league game, and we fell short against both Lafayette and Holy Cross. Holy Cross obviously eventually won the championships. So we know we certainly can compete with everyone that we play. We're balancing that, all of this tremendous amount of experience coming back with also a ton of young players, a great freshman class that have come in. And again, they have had, they had a freshman experience unlike any other, just either with the university in general, but just, specifically with football. And there's a lot of talented players there who've been working hard. And despite all of this experience and the great number of starters that we do have back, we're going to need to rely on several freshmen to come up and make plays in every game that we have this season as well. It's just, one thing that experience has taught me is that, this is a physical game, and you'd love to think that you'd have all 11 starters on offense and defense ready for every game this year, but that's just not the reality of the game. So we are going to have some new faces and guys thrown into the fire for the very first time, and they're going to have to mature quickly as well if we're going to win a championship.
Coach, there have been some additions and changes to your coaching staff. So can you tell us about the new coaches and what they bring to the table? And also talk about the change on the defensive side of the ball with the change in the coordinator position.
Sure. Yeah. So we lost a couple of coaches to some 10 schools, some pretty ACC and some great opportunities for them to further their careers. Brought in a couple of outstanding coaches. On the defensive side, Ryan Redd is on board. Georgetown, Kentucky. Has done a phenomenal job. Started at the end of October, so got a little bit of time to know our players before we went away for our winter break, and has done a great job in really getting, particularly with those young guys that I mentioned, a lot of young defensive backs, and working with them through the last 2 weeks. 2.5 weeks of practice. So we're happy to have him on board. Coach Johnson, our new running backs coach, played at Buffalo, had an opportunity to try out for the Buffalo Bills. Was coaching running backs at Marist, and we were able to hire him right about the same time as Coach Redd. Done a great job. He's a fiery leader. He brings a lot of emotion and intensity. The running back meeting room, and I know our guys are really excited to have him as well. The biggest change, obviously, was losing our defensive coordinator, Ryan Manilak, to Pitt to become their linebackers coach. Our defense had a ton of success, but we were able to transition Isaac Collins, who had previously coached our defensive backs and obviously was very familiar with our personnel and with our scheme, and he was able to become our defensive coordinator. He's a veteran coach who's been a head coach at the Division II and Division III level, but also been a defensive coordinator who's coached linebackers in the Southern Conference for a couple of years at Holy Cross in the Patriot League. So he's really familiar with the game here, and we were really excited to just be able to have that transition, and it's been seamless. Now, Coach Collins is, adding his own wrinkle here or there to the scheme, and we will see some new things. So our defense has done a phenomenal job of just adapting to the new stuff, but just that comfort level is there, that learning curve in place, and we've been very fortunate from that aspect, just to have a seamless transition. But to lose your coordinator 3 weeks before a season starts is a gut-wrenching experience for both the players and the other coaching staff. But in this case, it's been painless and a great situation that our players have been able to handle.
Coach, maybe one of the most important positions on any football coaching staff might be the strength coach. You've got a good one in Mark Colbus. I know the players have raved about the difference he's made in the program since he arrived here. Can you talk about Mark's background and a little bit about what he's brought to the program?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, he is the backbone of our program. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that with how the NCAA rules work, your strength coach winds up spending more time with the team a year in, throughout the course of a year than any, myself as the head coach, any of the coordinators, or any of the position coaches. So he's there day in and day out. He's at practice. He's in the weight room, whether it's lifting our guys or out for running, for agility or conditioning sessions. He's allowed to do things that we can't as regular coaches. And we're very, very fortunate to have Coach Colbus a part. They're really fortunate. One of the things, an advantage that we do have over some of our league opponents, the majority of our league opponents, is that he's a full-time football strength coach. So he doesn't have any other responsibilities working with the men's or women's lacrosse teams or soccer teams. He is just football 100% of the time. And he's got a great background, learned some of his stuff from Ohio State. He was working at Dartmouth, which has a reputation as really being the strongest, at least football program in terms of their strength development in the Ivy League, rather. And we're really excited with what he's been able to accomplish here over the past 2 years here at Bucknell. I mean, he's a great motivator. He is his knowledge is unmatched, not just in terms of strength, but areas, but also, nutrition and hydration. He's really well schooled in that. And as any great strength coach, he also is just a tiny bit insane, just a little off his rocker. And our players love that. He's a great motivator, and he's a great guy to be around. And our guys feed off, our players feed off of his energy. And that's what I really like as a head coach and a strength coach that's like that. Because again, he's spending more time with players than anybody else.
Coach, you've had 2 consecutive solid recruiting classes. So can you give us a scouting report of first years? And given what you've seen this fall, and even right here in this short period of the spring, what can fans look forward to from any standouts or individuals to really expect to see performances this year?
Yeah, well, we do. As Tom mentioned, we have so many returning starters that are back. A championship on the offensive side of the ball. What is that going to look like? Our championship offense has to be very diverse. We like to spread teams out. We run a lot of run pass options. It's a very sophisticated offense, which is why we're excited about year 2, because our players, the returning players, are just that much more comfortable in the systems. And starting at that quarterback position, we do ask a lot of that player. Logan Bidekoffer took the majority of snaps last year, had some great days, had some not so great days. A lot of learning experience for him. He's got a lot more, just I think his level of comfort with our offense has been much different so far here in the spring, and he's done a great job. Taryn Earl, who saw a decent amount of playing time as well, he has had a great spring, and we expect him to play some as well. I always like to have like the beginning of the season, more than one quarterback that can go out there and give you value. And Taryn is a great leader and has worked really hard. He deserves that opportunity as well. So you'll see some of him. We do have a ton of skill players that we feel are great threats. With the ball. Jared Cooper as our tailback returns. He's started for or played a lot from the second he set foot on this campus to now, and we're going to continue to count on him to be our go-to running back. Does a great job of catching the ball out of the backfield. We have a pretty solid group of wide receivers that have caught a lot of passes for us. You have to start with Brandon Sanders, being someone who is an all-conference performer from a year ago. We need him to stay healthy because he's a difference maker when the ball is in his hands. Lyles started a lot of games and made some huge catches for us, as did John McGuire. All three of those guys huge plays for us throughout the year, and they come back as well. So does our starting tight end, Alex Twyford. To be honest, with all of those skill players back, position that I'm most excited about is the offensive line. We really struggled through some injuries a year ago, had a different starting five almost weekly that we had to throw out there and didn't have a lot of time for those guys to gel. I really think we've made some tremendous strides. Obviously it starts with PJ Barr, our all-conference lineman. He can play guard, he can play tackle. I could play center if we ever asked him to, but we do have a lot of starters coming back, and the addition of a couple of incredible freshmen. Casey Stevenson, Ethan Pitzel, a couple of freshman offensive linemen that have really, really impressed. And we just feel so much more confident with depth that we have at that position. So returning a bunch of players who did get starts and played a lot during the 2019 season, and just augmenting that with a couple of freshmen who can add depth and really have us be able to have the confidence of having a two deep at every position, be ready to go out there should they be called upon, and that's great. On the defensive side of the ball, we were really, really productive a year ago, and having 10 starters back from that defense is awesome. For us, I think the conversation there really starts with our linebacking core, having all three of our linebackers back. Simeon Page, an all-league returning starter since his freshman year, is back. We're really, really happy to get him for his senior year. Rick Matrum played in just an incredible level of football throughout his junior year, comes back as well. And Garrett Van Italy, who started the majority of our games at our outside linebacker position, is back. So all three of those guys back. Our two safeties are back as well. Brandon Benson is just, I think, playing as good as he's played, and that's saying a lot because he was a really good player for us this past year. Connor Romango just continues. He's just grown in leaps and bounds, just physically bigger, stronger, and faster. He's always been a kid that played with a lot of moxie, just a really high football IQ, and he knows our offense probably as good as some of our freshmen do. He's a really, really smart football player. And then on the defensive line, Unachukwu is back, got voted preseason all-league. Great Cherubino, a guy who just kept getting better and better, really played his best football. The last game or two of the 2019 season, he just continues to get bigger, stronger, and faster. So we really do have a great core group of guys that are coming back, and there's a lot to be excited about, this coming season.
Coach, talking about the guys coming back, I want to talk 1 second about the guy that left. Can you update folks on what you've heard from Alex Peachin and what's going on with him at this point?
Yeah, I was really surprised. Obviously, Alex got the invite to the NFL Combine and did a really solid job while he was there, and we were really surprised when he didn't get picked up by an NFL team, either drafted or as a free agent. Unfortunately, it was just bad luck for him. In this day and age with COVID, if you rewind back to this past summer, the NFL did change a number of their rules for, again, safety protocol. So they didn't bring in as large of a roster to their training camps. And so there weren't as many punters that were signed that had been signed in prior years. And there was a lot of experience. It's a tough position to break into the NFL when you realize, nobody really carries more than one punter on their roster. So there's so few spots that are out there. He's continued to work hard and has an agent fortunately, this is one of these types of positions that just because it goes around 1 year and you don't happen to land with the team, everybody knows that you're continuing to work out and just getting better and more experienced, stronger, more flexible. Hopefully the second go around, and perhaps with the training camp restrictions lifted, which I would hope would be the case, coming this August, that maybe this year will be his year. So certainly haven't given up hope on him because he certainly deserves it. Not just because, he's an amazing human being, did a great job as a captain and is everything that we like to talk about, a Bucknell football player can be, but he has the talent. There's no doubt about it. He can make it in the NFL and to land with the right team at the right time.
We are all cheering for Alex, that's for sure. So, Coach, we are also extremely excited for March 20th to be here at Christy Matheson. And so we'll open up against the Leopards, but without non-conference and any film to this point on the Leopards, how's the staff preparing and what do you think we can expect to see from them come March 20th?
Yeah, they have a new defensive coordinator as well. So it's not just us dealing with a new defensive coordinator. They have a new defensive coordinator. So there's a little bit of that grayness that's out there. So we're doing our best to prepare. The crazy thing is not just prepare for Lafayette, but we've been working hard over the past couple of months to prepare game plans for every single possible Patriot League opponent. We know that, again, things can change here on a dime and Lafayette may be out and we may get Fordham put in or Colgate. We know that that's a possibility. So again, unlike any other type of year, you have to have these types of game plans. You're used to having a full week of preparation, studying film on Sunday and Monday and then practicing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for a Saturday game and installing these game plans. And we know that might not be the case. We might not have that luxury. So we've worked really hard as a coaching staff to be ready to pivot on a moment's notice. So if we do find out Thursday morning that we've been assigned a different game, we'll be ready. We can pivot as quickly as we can, install, have a game plan ready to go. And is it going to be as perfect as it would if we had a week to prepare? No, but our opponent won't be as prepared either because they'll have the same amount of time to prepare as us. So yeah, that's just another way. And this is a season like no other.
Well, Coach, we're going to end our portion of the program with you with a few questions from our viewers. And the first one comes from Stephen in Mifflinburg. And he wants to know, what's the most significant impact COVID has had on recruiting?
Well, without a question, that's been the ability to have players on your campus. The NCAA usually allows you to have either unofficial visits in which a player pays their own way to come to your campus, and then you can meet with them and show them the facilities, introduce them to the coaching staff, the players, or an official visit where we pay for the cost of that prospect to come onto our campus and they can spend the night and really get to know our players. And that has been robbed. And so that's been the toughest thing. Here we are in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, which isn't as accessible, particularly when you look at the national recruiting push. We've really stretched our reach, geographically. We've got players that we brought in from California, from Florida, really all over the country. And that becomes more of a challenge to do that if players, can't actually get boots on the ground on our campus. And that's been a huge challenge for us because our campus is so beautiful. It's a huge selling point. The town of Lewisburg, we like to call it the range. Being here on the range is something that, for the right person, is a huge draw. And so we really depend upon that. So we had to come up with creative ways. If a prospect couldn't make it onto our campus, we have to do everything we can to bring our campus to that prospect. And then that's through a lot of Zooms, tours, virtual tours that we can do, and video series, just familiarizing themselves with the university and our football program and the town, the culture, all of these things. Obviously, again, everybody to a certain degree is dealing with the same type of challenge, but without question, that's been the biggest difference that COVID has brought, is just, your campus, you're not allowed to meet with those players on campus, and they've got to make do.
Our next viewer question comes from Emilio in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and he asks, what are the 3 key improvements made over the past year that has you optimistic about this season?
Yeah, like I said, I'll go back to number 1 being just the familiarity with the scheme. You really could see just how the 2019 season unfolded, how much we improved really in every phase of the game. We had a tough non-conference schedule to start the season, but we really started clicking once we got to our league schedule. And so that's the thing I'm most confident about. The second thing is we were able to accomplish things as a football team in the fall that was a little bit better than the rest of the league. Everything's relative, and you have to look at it that way. So we're sitting here saying, gosh, we're not getting as many practices before our first game as we normally would have in a year. But the reality is it's just how many practices has your opponent gotten in. And while Lafayette may get a couple more here in the spring before we get to them, then we'll be their second game. They'll be our first game most likely. But overall, we actually have an overall advantage when you factor in what we were able to accomplish in the fall. And we had a decent amount of practices. We had some limited inter-squad scrimmaging drills and team that we were able to do. Got about 14 full practices in the fall, and a team like Lafayette didn't have any. Some other teams in the league like Colgate and Fordham would have practices, but in smaller groups. So we were able to really successfully get a lot of stuff done in September and October and a little bit of November that hopefully will help us pay off. The third thing that I think I'm really excited about is, again, our first class that we recruited as a new staff. They're freshmen. It seemed like it took forever for them to get here and for us to have practices, but they're here. It's a large recruiting class, 26 young men that joined us, and I'm really excited about the future. A lot of them, like I said, are going to be having an impact. When we play Lafayette, they'll be out there and providing depth, helping out on special teams. But got some, we've added some size, we've added some strength to the team, we've added some speed and athleticism. And while they may not have the experience so far, we're certainly excited to see the overall impact that they're going to have, not just here the spring season, but you also have to keep in mind, we're not that far away from their sophomore fall season. So it's going to be a quick turnaround. And so the type of experience that these freshmen can get as well is going to help pay off down the road.
So Dave, our final question from the audience is from Tricia in Ohio, and you answered part of this already, but she wants to know, how has lack of practice going into the games you are playing and going to affect the games you are playing, and how are you protecting yourselves from injury?
Yeah, gosh, great question. I mean, that's the biggest thing with the injury. It's a magical number. You try your best to push your players in practice, have a physical practice so they can, again, get used to the physicality of the game, the pads popping and a little bit of tackling, but again, not a lot. You want to balance that, counterbalance that by saying, hey, because we haven't done this, we want to really ease into it and back off so we're as healthy as we possibly can be as the season starts. We've been very fortunate from an injury standpoint, doing great so far. But we try to push our players cardiovascularly to be in the best shape that they possibly can. But there's no substitute for football other than football, running those plays and the contact that's created, even if you're just, we call it a thud session where you're wrapping up, but you're not winding up on the ground. No one should leave their feet in those types of scenarios. And that's the type of tempo that we've tried to take in most of our practices to get us to that point where we can feel confident that our players can go out there and play hard for 60 minutes. But that, again, is another reason why I keep mentioning the depth, because, if you do have a couple of players who might be able to give you 30 snaps, which may equate to a half of a game, you still need them to give you that. And then you need their backups to play as well. And so certainly, in the first couple of weeks of the season, we're going to be doing that a lot. And you try to bring that into the preparation that you have, each and every day. And I think that adds a little bit of sense of urgency from everybody on the team, because everybody understands and knows that they've got to be ready to go, not just because the man in front of them could go down at any minute, but because of COVID, someone may be placed in isolation and on a moment's notice, someone was our second stringer or third string player has to be ready when they get the call on 24 hours notice to start a football game for us.
Well, Coach, we certainly appreciate your time tonight. And as always, we wish you and the team the best of luck this spring. And we're excited to see you guys out there on March 20th.
All right. Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Maisha.
All right. Time now to welcome our 4 current players to tonight's program and the 4 captains of our team this year. We'll welcome those guys in. Welcome, guys. Our first guest is senior safety Brandon Benson, who's from Triangle, Virginia, and is a product of C.D. Hilton High School. Thanks for joining us today, Brandon.
Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Good, good. It seems like just yesterday you were receiving the team's Rookie of the Year award along with Simeon, but here we are and you're a senior captain. For the Bison fans who may not know it, can you share your recruiting story and tell us how you wound up here at Bucknell as a member of the football program?
Actually, back in high school, I actually started off playing quarterback. So going into my junior year of high school, I actually switched over playing defense, and I started playing like outside linebacker position. So being in between like the 6 feet, 6'1" range, playing quarterback wasn't going to be optimal. So late or early into my senior year, I had moved to safety, and during that time, recruiting was starting to pick up. And then, Bucknell offer came, visited, loved the campus, and just came to Bucknell. So,
well, we're glad you're here for sure.
Brandon, thanks for joining us tonight. It's great to see you. So we're going to jump right in and start talking about you and your leadership and also those that are surrounding you, but particularly because the secondary has typically been filled with experience and talent during your time here. And this year it's a bit on the younger side. So as someone who's already played in 29 games and amassed nearly 200 tackles, how have you extended your leadership role with this group?
Honestly, just trying my best in practice, giving these guys every bit of advice I have. It's just kind of like what I learned coming up when I was a freshman, having, the senior leaders on the defense, every time I had some type of like error in the game or I did something wrong, just picking me up, keeping me going, and, just giving them whatever information I can, just being a resource for those guys. A lot of them are already talented. They're all ready to play, and I'm excited for what they're going to do this year as well. So.
Great. Brandon, we're now in the second year of Coach Cicchini's tenure, and the team continues to build and refine its culture. We hear the acronym ACT all the time now. Can you explain to our viewer audience what exactly that means and how the team has bought into that culture?
ACT, attitude, character, toughness. We break on it every day. Something that means a lot to this program. Colbus, he's definitely, he's a big supporter of it. He makes sure that we know the program mantra. Like this is what we are. We've all bought in. It's everything that this program was embody. Attitude, every day. Whether the weather's cold in the spring, whatever it's doing, we go out to practice. Try to bring the juice. Character, we show up every day. Meetings, show up on time. Everything. Toughness. We're just a tough football team. I think any of these guys would say that we're a tough football team. We're gonna be ready to play. So ACT, that's what we are. So.
Love it. So now we've got a question from one of our viewers, and it's from Annette here in Lewisburg, and she wants to know, How do you mentally prepare yourself for game day? And do you have any superstitions or routines that you follow?
I would say I'm a very superstitious guy. My game day routine, I do usually keep it the same. I might get a stretch in between, before the game. I show up to the stadium pretty early. I have a couple songs I would say that's superstitious. I listen to a couple songs before every game. That's definitely a big part of it. But yeah, my game day routine looks the same. I'm not very superstitious. I try to stay calm, stay relaxed, talk to the guys, maybe go over, talk to Mango, other DBs, just get ready for the game, mentally prepared, and, get ready to go ball. So.
What athlete doesn't have a superstition, right?
Right.
All right. So between you and the three other guys on this call, we've got a ton of leadership here represented. Who are some of the past players from the program that you respected as leaders and why? And aside from your teammates here tonight on the call, can you share with us a player who you admire and respect the most on the team now and why?
Okay, I'll start with the first question. So for the first question, definitely Alex Peachin. I think all of us would agree and say that he definitely helped us all out, whether it was school, anything outside of football, always reaching out. And that's kind of what it embodied for me, my leadership and what I want to be able to do for the younger guys. Joe Loro, Abdullah, anybody that ever outside of football, I was bigger than football. They always reached out to me, always say I was doing, it's a rough transition becoming from high school to college and being a freshman. So that's definitely, I would say those guys stick out the most. And what was the second question? You said somebody I admire the most?
Right, on the current team.
There's a couple guys, but
you can say two if you can't choose one.
I'll choose an offense and defensive guy, just to be fair. Defensively, I would definitely have to say Mango. That's definitely somebody that I do admire how he plays. He gives his body up. If somebody comes after me in the game, I know he's going to be there. He has my back. So we kind of just built that relationship, that bond. And I respect him as a player. I respect him as a brother. And offensively, definitely, I would say Logan. I met Logan one of my first days coming up here. I moved into Roberts Hall and I met Logan. So ever since then, we've always been cool. And I just respect him. Playing quarterback's hard. I used to be a former quarterback. I know what it's like. I know the reads and everything I used to go through and just the leadership he tries to provide on offense. I commend him for it because I know what it's like to be a quarterback. So.
Brandon, we certainly don't want to push you out the door because we got things to do yet here this season and this semester. But what's your major, and do you have any post-graduation plans yet? And if no plans, what are you pursuing?
Post-graduation plans, I'm probably gonna be attending a grad school. I haven't decided yet. Go play football in the fall somewhere else, and that's just kind of my plan. But right now, I've kind of put that off to the side. I'm just focused on these next couple of games, these next couple of weeks, and just winning a Patriot League championship and just finishing it off with these guys right here. So.
Well, Brandon, we're definitely cheering for you and your teammates to accomplish exactly that, and wishing you all the best this season. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, our next guest is senior linebacker Simeon Page, who came to Bucknell all the way from Riverton, Utah. He attended Riverton High School and then spent a post-grad semester at the Air Force Academy Prep School before arriving in Lewisburg in the fall of 2017. Welcome, Simeon. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So certainly Utah and Lewisburg are a long way apart. Share with us how you wound up here at Bucknell.
Yeah, I think I get this question a lot, and I think I still don't have the accurate answer for it. Yeah, when I first got offers in high school, I'd never even heard of Bucknell. I didn't even know what part of the country it was in. My two offers straight out of high school were Bucknell and Air Force. I ended up doing a semester at the Air Force Prep. It was in Colorado, right next to Utah. Kind of made a lot of sense for me at that time, especially being close to my family. Ended up not being something I wanted to do. And I was just fortunate enough that the coaching staff at the time at Bucknell still had enough faith in me to keep that scholarship for me. And they let me come in and found the home where I was supposed to be the whole time. So I ended up at little old Lewisburg across the country.
Well, Simeon, we are happy to have you here, and you have certainly had contributions already in your career, being Three-time All-Patriot League selection, including 2 first-team nods and nearly 150 tackles to your credit, including 22 and a half sacks and 34 and a half for loss entering your final season. With that, what expectations do you have of yourself and the team this spring?
I got a lot of expectations for our team. I mean, I think every senior expects his last semester that he gets to play to be the culminating experience, and they want everybody on board to be doing the same thing. Personally, I obviously have goals for myself. I would love nothing more to be another all-league selection. I would love to put my name in the record books of breaking the sack record here. But overall, my biggest goal since probably I was in the elementary, maybe middle school, was to just be a team captain in college. And I'm just like proud enough that my teammates had enough trust in me to vote me in as one of them. And that's my biggest goal for the year, just to be the best team captain to all the younger guys and all the guys that voted me in and put their trust in me.
Simeon, Bucknell's defense has traditionally been one of the best in the Patriot League and one of the toughest. As one of the leaders on that side of the ball, what do you attribute that to?
I mean, as cliche as this sounds, probably just the culture. I mean, day one, I came in here as a mid-year transfer. So I came this spring by myself, and right out the gate, I mean, I had a big thing to do with the captains we already had there, especially the linebackers. And it was just very apparent that, I mean, I spent all my time on the defense. I can't speak as balanced for the offense, but the Bucknell's defense is typically known as one of the, if not the best in the league, and that it is everybody, including every underclassman's job to maintain that reputation. And only as strong as the weakest link on the D, and we don't like to have any weak links. So I think that's contributed in large part to us never really having a bad season.
Simeon, after not competing for a long period of time, certainly not during the traditional fall season, that's all getting ready to change here in 12 days when we welcome the Leopards here to Christy Matheson Memorial Stadium. And so how excited are you and your teammates to get back into game condition? And then also share your observations about how the team is prepared mentally and physically given the uniqueness of this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fully loaded question for sure. I mean, we can be more excited to get back, that's for sure. We were a little disappointed with the pushback of the first game, but we understand the situation. We know that everybody else is going through the same thing. I think Coach Chick hit it right on the head with we would play tomorrow if they let us, but because of the conditions, we just have to wait. We just take it day by day. It's been a little bit exhausting mentally for myself and the team as a whole, but we focus on ourselves. And honestly, with all the changes, we just, at least for me, and I know that a lot of other guys on the team, we look at our day by day schedule and we're focused on the next meeting, the next period, the next practice. And then we'll play when they let us play. And we got about a year and a half of energy and excitement saved up. So whenever they let us play, we'll be ready to go.
Simeon, we've got a question from a viewer for you. And this one is from former Bison quarterback Darius Wilson, who now lives in Newark, New Jersey. And he wants to know, how did the strength and conditioning routine change with the football season being in the spring? And what has been the biggest challenge you've faced during these unsettled times?
I'll probably start with the biggest challenge, which has just been adjusting to the time adjustment. Everything just goes back to COVID. Everything's way more spread out. You have to be way more individual with your time. All strength and conditioning, all practices. We're getting more to team activities, but it's all been broken up into groups, and you have to really hold those small groups accountable. That's probably been the biggest challenge for everybody, just having to motivate yourselves within groups of 3 to 8 instead of full team. But yeah, that's probably been the hardest thing to adjust to this spring.
What about the strength and conditioning? Did that change since you're playing in the spring versus a normal fall season?
A little bit. It kind of flipped from the fall to the spring. So we're kind of on the same schedule, just a little bit more spread out, like I said, because of COVID. But usually in the spring, it's our heavy workload for strength and conditioning. It's usually our build-up period where, especially for the younger guys, we're getting them right, putting on weight, getting them a lot stronger. And instead, we're kind of on the reverse of that. We're in a maintained period where we're trying to keep our bodies as healthy as possible so we can play as soon as they let us.
Simeon, our final question for you is similar to what we asked Brandon, and so certainly want to know for the audience what you're majoring in and what post-graduation plans you have, or at least what are you pursuing if no definitive plans yet?
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with Brandon. I don't have any super definitive plans right now. I plan to go home, and I'm hoping at least for the first year or two after I graduate, pursue something with writing because I'm a creative writing major. I'd like to parlay that into something where I can write about something I love. I haven't specified yet, but right now I kind of have that on a hold, and I'm just putting my entire focus and energy into getting ready for the season and being the best captain and leader I can be for the rest of the guys.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Simeon, and thanks for joining us here this evening. Wishing you and your teammates the best of luck this season.
Thank you very much.
All right, and our next guest today is senior linebacker Rick Matrum, who's from Cream Ridge, New Jersey, where he attended Allentown High School. Welcome to the show, Rick.
Thanks for having me.
And just as we did with the previous two guys, I'm going to ask you about your recruiting experience and how you wound up at Bucknell, but something tells me a solid engineering school had something to do with your choice.
Yeah, definitely. So when I was looking for schools, I knew I wanted to do engineering. So me and my dad sat down and made a list of the best engineering schools that also had Division I football. And that immediately became my goal of schools that I wanted to go to. And then Bucknell happened to come along really early in the process, February of my junior year. Coach Susan recruited me and he offered me a scholarship very early on. So I think I was the first recruit in the class right before PJ in June of my junior year. So I knew pretty early that this is where I wanted to be.
Rick, you have certainly embodied what a scholar athlete is, and you've excelled on the field and in the classroom, and have just a tremendous resume of accomplishments. In fact, you were named a first team academic All-American last year, and this year are one of 45 FCS players to be named as semifinalists for the National Football Foundation and College Hall of Fame's William V. Campbell Trophy, often referred to as the academic Heisman. What is it that drives you both on the field and in the classroom to achieve such high success?
I think it's just the love for both. Like I love going to school and doing class as much as I love going to practice. The combination of both is just a great balance. I can be sitting at a desk working really hard all day, and then I get to go run around on the field with the guys. So just being really passionate about both and being able to put full effort and have the support of everyone else made it pretty easy.
So Rick, you had 102 tackles in 2019. You became the first Bison to top the century mark there since 2014. From a linebacker standpoint, and I'm sure Simeon could answer this as well, but from a linebacker standpoint, what is it that you look for on each play? Obviously on a passing down, it might be different than from a run play, but what is it that you're looking for? What are your keys? And how important is it to have a real nose for the football if you're playing a linebacker spot?
Yeah, it's a good question. So our keys are different depending on the coverage and the front in front of us, but Simeon and the other linebackers could attest to it. We've been playing linebacker for a long time. So it's been like 8 years of just reading the keys, reading guards and tackles and backfield flow and just trying to find the football. So most of the time I'm reading either the center or the guard and then their first movement, and based on that, reading the backfield flow, and then just, like you said, having a nose for the ball, not being so set on one gap in particular or taking on an offensive lineman and trying to beat him, but just trying to get around him whatever way possible to find the ball.
Time for viewer question. Oops, sorry.
I forgot the second part of that question. What's it like playing alongside a guy like Simeon?
Playing next to Simeon and Garrett and just in the whole defense there's just an understanding of football that is hard to imagine, really. Like Coach Manilak and now Coach Collins have done a great job instilling a confidence and a knowledge of football in all of the guys that is really inspiring, and everyone knows exactly where they're supposed to be on every play. And having someone like Simeon that can turn a game around in one snap is awesome. He did it, a million times throughout his career. So having all these talented guys and big playmakers makes it really easy to do my job.
All right, now time for a viewer question. This one's from Doug here in Lewisburg, and he'd like to know, how have you grown as both an individual and as a player over your time here at Bucknell?
Another good question. So as a player, there's been a lot of growth because we've had so many linebacker coaches. I guess it's been 4. So we've had 3 in the last month. Yeah. Simeon's saying, I think he might've had 5. But having all those different coaches and going through the adversity of switching coaches, and as well as the pandemic and everything, has led to a lot of growth individually and in football. So playing for all these different people, they all have different expectations and things they look for, and they really learning how to not please them, but learn how to do what they want you to do and be as good as your job as possible. Led to a lot of growth. And then as a football player and as an individual, the school does a great job of making you into the best person as possible from the time you get here, throughout classes and athletics and all the other events and people you meet on campus. They really care about making you the best individual you can be.
Rick, as Coach mentioned, you guys were one of the only programs, if not the only program, to have large group practices in the fall. How much of an advantage do you think that's going to be to you guys as you prepare for a condensed Patriot League season?
I think it's been huge, especially for the freshmen, most importantly. For the freshmen to have that time with the seniors and with the older guys on the team to learn from them, not only the scheme, but also work ethic and how to act on campus and everything, I think was a big advantage over other Patriot League schools where some of the freshmen didn't get to meet their guys until this semester. So for the freshmen to have basically a full spring season in the fall and then go home and let it soak in and then come back ready to go, you can tell that they've all made improvements. They learned a lot from the older guys in the fall and took that home with them, got bigger, stronger, faster. And then you could see a noticeable difference in spring. So for the freshmen especially, but the whole team, it was a big advantage to be here in the fall.
Rick, what do you see as the keys for success for this team to be successful during this condensed Patriot League season?
I think it starts with the leadership. On the defensive side especially, we only have 3 coaches on the staff right now. So it's going to count a lot on the guys on the team to take care of the sideline and take care of the younger guys and make sure everyone's doing their part, because we don't have the coaches looking over us all the time and make sure we're doing the right thing. So the older guys making sure everyone's doing the right thing, and then the team just gelling as a whole. We've had some changes on the staff, and the scheme changes a little bit, but being able to watch the film, make the corrections, and work to be as good as we can all the time is really important.
Rick, one final question for you, and it's same we asked the other guys. What are your plans following graduation? We know you're a mechanical engineering major here, I believe, at Bucknell. Any thoughts to post-graduation plans for at this point?
Yeah, so I was actually lucky. I got this done early. So in August, I accepted a job at Lockheed Martin Space as a systems engineer in Russia.
Well, that's outstanding. It's one less thing you have to worry about. Now you can concentrate on going out there and winning a Patriot League title.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for your time tonight, Rick, and we wish you and your teammates the best of luck this season.
Thank you.
All right. And our final guest today is from the offensive side of the ball. It's senior offensive lineman PJ Barr, who hails from North Brunswick, New Jersey, and he played at St. Joseph High School. Welcome to the show, PJ.
How's it going? Thank you for having me.
Good. You know, it seems like just yesterday you were a freshman in preseason camp, and you were with a bunch of guys helping me distribute poster schedules and pocket schedules on Market Street. And now you're a senior already. Tell us and the Bison fans how you came to be a member of the program here.
Yeah. First, that day feels like yesterday. I still remember that. But coming out of high school, Bucknell was the first of 4 offers I eventually had from schools in the Patriot League and the NEC. But I just fell in love with the campus. Like Coach said, like the campus is a big selling point. It was definitely a big selling point for me. But I fell in love with the campus, the smaller teacher to student ratio, and just the coaches and football program at the time in general. Especially the offensive line coach, Coach State, who was here at the time. But yeah, they were my first offer, and made it home.
We're glad you're here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
PJ, you are a veteran on this offensive line, having been a 3-year starter and he started in 30 games. So in most cases, the lines have been composed of younger players around you, but this year we've got a more experienced upper class team members around. And so talk about how the team's gelled over the time and, you know, what it's like to know each other's tendencies, how you go about the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been great, especially being a second semester senior. It's just added time that I've gotten to know my class, like the guys in my class, as well as the younger guys. Especially with the younger guys, usually as a senior, you only have one semester of playing and trying to lead and instill knowledge in freshmen. So it's nice having this extra time where I can actually work with some of our freshmen more on a one-to-one basis and helping them grow. And some of them are really going to help us this spring. But it's been great. It's been a great time, and it's been nice being able to get to know them better.
So PJ, we all know the offensive linemen don't get any of the glory, but if you're a football fan, you also know that the offensive line is a huge, huge component of any success a football team has.
Yep.
Just ask the Kansas City Chiefs or Patrick Mahomes, right?
Absolutely.
So what are some of the things that drive linemen to be successful? And do you relish the opportunity to help your team run out the clock to victory by just running the ball on that last drive?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the greatest feelings in the world, is getting the ball in a 4-minute drill and killing the clock. Like, we did that against Colgate, and I think I can speak for the 4 of us here. We despise Colgate. So doing that against them after 2 years of us not doing any offense was a great feeling. To be a real good offensive lineman, you have to understand you're not going to get the glory. Now, of course, like the quarterback and the running backs, they will shout us out. They will give us the recognition. But it's like, you have to know that, and 2, you got to be ready to play. Like, we get bumps and bruises, same as linebackers. Like, it takes a lot for us to be successful and to stay healthy throughout the course of the season. So keeping your body healthy, staying ahead on your rehab, and wanting to hit people is the big keys to being successful as an offensive lineman.
PJ, we have a viewer question from you, and this is from Barbara in North Brunswick, New Jersey, and she asks, you might know that you might know the name and area, right? That's great. COVID has certainly been hard on everyone. Talk about what it's like to be a student athlete in times of COVID.
It's definitely been harder. The one group of people I don't envy is the freshmen during this time. I thought freshman year alone before COVID was hard, and adding a global pandemic, it makes life, I couldn't imagine making life miserable. So shout out to them. They've been rolling with the punches. They've been on top of their stuff throughout the whole year. But it definitely adds a challenge as student athletes. Like, we do have 2 full-time jobs, both in the classroom and on the field. But at the end of the day, like, our athletics, I know for a lot of us, are our kind of escape from the world. And so getting back to football, getting back to playing, it kind of has helped a lot of us just be back to what we love and almost recenter and refocus on what else we need to do off the field.
Great. So is there a team within the Patriot League that the Bison really enjoy playing against? And on a personal level, who are some of the individuals from the conference teams who present biggest challenges to block for you?
Yeah, so I mean, any Patriot League's team I like to play. I really don't like Lehigh, really don't like Colgate, but I can't say I really like anyone in the Patriot League. And there's a lot of players in this league that I like going against. There's a lot of linebackers too, and we have 2 of the, as Rick's pointing out, it's an honor to go against Rick and Sim every day, because I do think they're the top 2 linebackers in our league. But there's a lot of linebackers and a lot of good DNs in this league that I enjoy going against because they do make me better. I know Fordham's got a pair of good linebackers as well, and Colgate's always had good defensive ends. So going against those guys, it's fun going against high caliber players.
So PJ, you're the only guy from the offensive side of the ball on the call tonight. So I'm going to ask you to shout out and give some love to your teammates there. Give us a quick scouting report on the offense, and who are some players in particular we should be watching out for this spring?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, I'm the only offensive captain, but I'm far from the only offensive leader. Guys like Logan Biddicoffer, Jared Cooper, John McGuire, Brandon Sanders, Dom Lyles, the list goes on. So all those guys lead in their own respective ways, and I looked up to them as well. Especially as an offensive lineman, there's not a lot of times where I'm with most of the offensive groups. A lot of my individuals just spent with the offensive line or going against the defensive line. So players like Logan and John McGuire and Brandon Sanders, who have a lot of experience, really help those guys like, because they're with them all the time. Like those groups always work together. But players to look out for, I'm excited for Casey Stevenson, freshman offensive lineman from St. Joe's Prep. The kid's an animal. I've never seen a freshman come in so composed and like act like he's been here before. So I'm excited for him. Other good players, Dom Lyles, Brandon Sanders, like our receiving core as a whole is really special. So yeah, definitely those guys.
We'll finish tonight with you with our typical closing question. Graduation's coming up before you know it.
Yep.
What are the plans for you? Any more football in the plans for you after you leave Bucknell?
Yep, I'll be playing next season for the University of Maine and doing a 2-year grad program there. And hopefully, my goal is to be a coach, a college coach. So the plan is to be a GA for them after my season there, and GA there for a year and a half, and then get into the coaching world.
Well, PJ, we'd like nothing more than to send you and the 3 other guys on this call off with a Patriot League championship. So best of luck to all of you. Get ready to take on Lafayette in that first game, and then take on that team we don't like, that Lehigh team, right after them. So thanks a lot, guys, for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Thanks for having us.
All right, special thanks to all of our guests tonight. We appreciate their time, and that's just about going to wrap up tonight's show. We want to thank Jeffrey Campbell, Jen DeBias, and Jess O'Shaughnessy for their assistance with tonight's event. Our next event in our season preview series will be tomorrow, Tuesday, March 9th at noon, and it will feature the women's rowing program. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Good night, and go Bison.